All right. Hi, everyone, to another episode of Nukes of Hazard. I'm Sarah Bradley.
I'm Mike Bradley.
I'm Rob Whelan.
And I'm Susanna Whelan.
All right. Thanks so much for joining us today. We are so excited to have with us Heather Hoff. Heather, welcome to the episode.
Hi, everyone. I'm excited to be on Nukes of Hazard, and I'm wearing an extra special shirt today in your honor.
Yeah.
You can close on the shirt.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, it's from our reactor engineering department where I work at Diablo nuclear power plant in California, and it is like the arc reactor from Iron Man, but it's actually our Diablo Canaan reactor, and it's pretty cool. So I'm excited to talk with you about what I do at Diablo Canaan and also my nonprofit Mothers for Nuclear.
Yeah. Heather, thanks so much for being with us. If our listeners are listening to this on Spotify or somewhere else, we recommend that you switch to YouTube so you can see Heather's
That swag, yeah. And that reactor, that reactor is running today because of Heather. I don't know if I'm stretching that too much, but
No,
that's good
what's getting done. Yeah. No, that's awesome.
Yeah, it's been a team effort gearing up support to continue running Diablo Canyon here in California. There was an effort to shut it down a little bit too early. We all think maybe a lot too early, like 100 years too early. And there's been a huge team effort of people, coming out of the woodworks to support it from every angle. And we've had some really great progress. So.
Well, good. Yeah, looking forward to diving into that. Also, if you're on YouTube, you can see Mike Bradley's spiffy attire today. Mike, what's going on with the outfit?
Yeah, where are
You look nice, Susanna. I dressed up for Susanna. I am in San Diego for the retirement of my dear friend, Katie Boehm. Katie would love talking to you, Heather. She's a very big nuclear advocate living in California. She did Navy nuclear training. She 27 years in the Navy, started out as a Navy nuke like Rob and I, switched to a engineering duty officer, and her husband did 20 plus years as a helicopter pilot, both retired as O6s, and it was a wonderful retirement ceremony with all of their families and their two daughters, Moira and Vivian, on the deck of the USS Midway. And and I'm wearing this Navy tie, and I was like, why am I changing?
That's great. I would love to meet Katie sometime. My current supervisor is also an ex-Navy nuke, and he has so many great stories about so many things that we don't always talk about at a commercial nuclear power plant. So I'm excited to learn all angles of nuclear.
Very cool. Well, bravo, Zulu, Katie, Captain Beam. We are very happy for you. Fair winds and all the good things. All right, let's get started as we usually do with some news stories. So there is news this week about a facility that is going to use spent fuel and recycle it. Somewhat new, right, in the United States. Rob, we'll kick it over to you. What's going on here?
Right. Yeah. So Oklo is a small modular reactor designer and has been around for a few years. They're actually publicly traded, and they have plans for a $1.68 billion fuel recycling facility. And so fuel recycling means, okay, after you've run through your uranium, your fuel in your reactor, when it's done, it doesn't fission anymore. They put it in storage, so spent fuel casks, and that it stays there kind of forever. And there's actually a lot of it around the United States. We don't use that fuel; we just store it to keep it safe, so it doesn't irradiate things around it. It just sits there, and what's the word? When it there's a word for it.
Nothing.
It does nothing. Thank you. Yeah. It does nothing. And that's kind of what Oklo is trying to fix. So their reactor they designed, they've called it the Aurora, is designed to use, it's called a fast reactor. And so they believe they can convert this spent fuel into, new fuel. So why is that significant? I'll lay it out and then we can talk about it. So in the United States, we don't recycle fuel. In France, which is 80% nuclear powered, they do recycle their fuel. And of that 80%, nuclear power across their entire country, 20% of that is from spent fuel. So, we'll call it recycled fuel. We don't do it in the United States because back in the 70s, we were, looking for non-proliferation agreements. Plutonium is one of the byproducts of uranium fissioning, and that can be used for a weapon. So since plutonium was available there, we didn't want to recycle it. And also, so all the commercial efforts to recycle fuel kind of stopped there. And if you followed the uranium markets, almost all uranium enrichment happens outside of the United States. So if you want fuel, you got to bring it in from a different country. So we just don't have the infrastructure here in the United States to recycle fuel and use it again. Oklo sees an opportunity here. They've got some advanced technology. I don't know much about it, but they think they can take this gobs and gobs and gobs of fuel sitting kind of lying dormant, recycle it, make it fissionable again, and put it in their new reactors. So pretty bullish. I mean, and $1.68 billion is real. Like, that's not just sort of we're going to try this out. So I'm kind of excited about that. Let's open the door to discussion. So is this going to work? Do you think this is going to work?
So didn't they just put this through the regulatory process and then they were
No, this was for this, they have given the NRC, the Nuclear Regulatory Commission, a regulatory engagement plan. So basically they said to the NRC, this is how we'd like to get this licensed. So they're at the very beginning stages for this in particular.
So just talking about all the stuff we've talked about so far, SMR company, how many megawatts you think, Rob? Like 50 or Heather?
I don't know the Aurora one. Yeah, it's probably 50 to 100.
Yeah, they kind of like to call it a micro reactor. And Oklo is a really great company. They're based here in California. And, we have two large nuclear plants in California that still have a lot of used fuel stored at our sites. So, we could give them our used fuel and they could make it into new fuel for more reactors. And I think that would be really exciting. And I love to see the progress that they're making. And, with the new executive orders that came out supporting nuclear energy, they kind of attacked every angle of nuclear. And one of them is about recycling used fuel. And so I think that's a really great symbol that there might be some progress soon. And I love that companies like Oklo are willing to kind of go out and forge the path forward on something that we haven't done yet, or for a while, except in kind of like research reactors and national labs and stuff. So I think it's really exciting to see this progress.
Yeah, I agree with you. They're pushing hard, on innovation on all levels, not just technology, but even in licensing. They're paving new ways to do that. It was funny. I watched the signing of those executive orders, and Jacob DeWitt, who was the co-founder, was there in the room, and he actually was an intern at GE when I was working there, and I might have met him once. And
Did you boss him around?
Yeah, I mean,
give me my coffee.
how else am I gonna get coffee?
Oh, come on.
Yeah, no, but he's kind of crushing it. So it's very exciting.
Well, I just I knew we had contacts at Oklo, and I reached out to one, and he's like messaging me real time right now. He's the director of reactor analysis at Oklo, so maybe a future guest, and we can talk about how they're going to do this. So yeah, so that's who I was taking a picture of. Like, we're talking about you right now. So yeah.
So let's talk about this specifically with Heather. So does Diablo Canyon have spent fuel casks, and like, where are they? How big are they? And what do you do with them?
Yeah, we do. Right now, you mentioned that used fuel is stored all around the country. There's over 70 sites, mostly at, existing nuclear reactors or reactors that have been shut down. And it just kind of sits there in canisters. And, one of the biggest questions that we get over at Mothers for Nuclear, a lot of people have concerns about nuclear waste. What about the waste? And it's a really hard question to answer. Technically it's kind of complicated. You mentioned plutonium. That sounds terrifying. So how do we make, meaning of this product that we have, sitting in our communities at Diablo Canyon? It's right on the coast, not right on the coast, but nearby. And a lot of people have worries about that. So I like to kind of ask, well, like, does it matter? What do we care about first? I care about human health. So does used fuel hurt anyone? It's never hurt anyone or anything. So, maybe that means that we're pretty good at managing it. And so I think it's important to kind of look at all of our other waste streams. Like, how does this fit in context with everything that we do as humans? We do a lot of things that create a lot of waste. And is nuclear waste bad compared to all other things? And it turns out it's actually one of the best kinds of waste because it doesn't hurt anyone or anything. It's pretty small and it just sits there.
I think that's a great point to compare it. Like, hey, there's waste in every system. So, and when we say waste in nuclear, it sounds scary, but it's really the fuel that's already been spent. So it's kind of like if you've got a fire in the fireplace, the waste would be the ashes from the logs that have been burned down. So it's got to go somewhere. That's what it is when we say waste.
I mean, Sarah and I live in coal country in Pennsylvania, and we've grown up seeing coal refuse, like from the mining process. We call them bony dumps, and then the coal trucks removing the in the coal power plants when they're done, their ash. I guess it is called ash. Removing those, and it makes your town dirty. It makes streams crappy. Like there were a lot of the streams around where we live were not fishable most of our lives. Now they've the environmental agencies have cleaned up a lot of stuff in the state. So but yeah, so there's a lot of waste and all the other stuff too. So
currently, where is the waste and what does it look like? I mean, is it accessible or is it deep down in the earth?
It is accessible. It's mostly on concrete pads on the surface, in either big canisters or in kind of like big blocks of concrete. And you can go and see it. San Onofre is a plant in California, in San Diego, where you are, Mike. And you can have a public tour. They give tours every month to their local community to talk about how they're decommissioning that plant and show people what it really looks like. And you can go walk out next to the canisters and touch the concrete and learn about, how much radiation you get, which is, a small amount more than background. It's not dangerous. And it's a great way to kind of get familiar with what used fuel looks like and how we store it and why it's maybe not as big of a deal as a lot of people make it.
awesome, super cool. Awesome.
Wow. Well, why don't we dig deeper, Heather, into your world, both with your nonprofit, Mothers for Nuclear, and your role at Diablo Canyon Nuclear Power Plant.
Yeah, take us back to when you and Rob were partying together at San Luis Obispo. So,
Yeah. Well, so we went to Top Poly together. I think we overlapped for a year or two. But yeah.
Yeah, so his friend Ben and I were in a materials engineering class together, introductory class, and it was a really great class. And so I have a degree in materials engineering, but when I graduated with that degree, I didn't quite realize that not very many people know what materials engineering was, and maybe wouldn't hire me, especially in a relatively small town. So I worked random jobs around town for a couple of years before I finally decided to try and get a job at Diablo Canyon. I was pretty nervous about it. My uncle's a physics professor. I've heard a lot of scary stories, and there was a lot of people in our community that shared a lot of scary sounding things. But also, I'm an engineer and I'm very curious. So I decided to just get a job. I had no idea what that job would be. I got a job in operations, and I just went in with a strong questioning attitude and really dug into everything that I had heard and thought. And in operations, it was great because I got to learn about all the different systems in the plant, how the whole thing works together. I got to be in the plant doing rounds on equipment, and then I got my license to operate the reactor, so I was actually in the control room. There's my license right there.
So that's a huge deal for our guests. How long did that take, and what was the study like?
Yeah, initial operator training was about a year, and then I was in the plant as a plant operator for a little bit, and then when I went back to licensing class, it was about 2 years. of classroom training, fundamentals, reactor theory, how do valves and pumps and generators work, like all of the things, and also on the job training and a lot of practicing on the simulator. So 2 years of that, and then like in the plant and actually doing on the job training with operators to get fully qualified, and it was intense. And there's not a whole lot of women that go into that field. I was the first one in quite a while. There were 2 before me, but I didn't really know them. They were both kind of retired before I started. So I was going into the space with a lot of, ex-Navy nukes and kind of military environments. And, I grew up in rural Arizona and was kind of like a hippie tree hugger. And it was a different kind of path than I envisioned my life taking. But I had also kind of previously given up on a lot of my environmental dreams of trying to have people use less energy and conserve and be less wasteful, because I realized that once people have energy, they want more of it. Energy gives you a really good quality of life, and you can't really convince people to use less. And there's so many people in the world that don't even have access to reliable energy. And so I just realized that we need so much more energy, and nuclear is so powerful that I kind of gradually over time got really on board with what we were doing at Diablo Canyon, where we make actually 10% of California's electricity. It's hugely powerful, and it's on this tiny little footprint of land.
It's like 10% of all is out.
Yeah, and it's like a nature preserve. It's amazing out there.
Come visit. I'm curious, how many people work on a plant?
Yeah, we have about right now 1,300 full-time employees, and
Whoa.
that fluctuates a little bit depending, what kind of big projects we have going on. And when we have our normal refueling outages once or twice a year, where we shut down the plant and we put new fuel in and we do all this maintenance and stuff, extra work, we bring in, like 1,000 extra people to help do that for about a month. So yeah, it's a really strong economic driver in our community, and contributes tax base to our local schools, and it's really a good community partner too. So even though I was nervous about working there, I'm really glad I kind of stuck it out. And it took me about 6 years to answer all my questions and be like, oh my gosh, I think nuclear is amazing. But I was still like a little hesitant, like radiation.
Yeah.
It's terrifying. So yeah, still a really long time to kind of change my mind and wrap my mind around it. And that was the ultimate kind of background for why I felt it was important to start a nonprofit, talk to communities differently about nuclear energy and more, because companies are kind of hesitant. They're flying under the radar, not attracting any attention, and just wanting to keep operating really efficiently and safely and reliably and making all this power, but never talking about it. So, yeah, so that was.
Yeah, let's get there. So, okay, so Mothers for Nuclear, and the other big topic is the decommissioning threat that Diablo had. Did that happen at the same time? Did you start Mothers for Nuclear in response to that, or did you already have it on? Or what's the story?
Yeah, so I started, I've been at Diablo for 21 years now, but like I said, it took me like 6 years to be like, okay, I think nuclear is amazing. And then even longer after that, I still had cycles where I was like, I think maybe I should quit my job. Like maybe I'm doing the wrong thing. Like when Fukushima happened, it took a while to kind of sort out what that actually was and what are the actual causes and impacts. And I came out the other side thinking, like, being an even stronger supporter of nuclear. Like, yes, we definitely need this. And so eventually, like, I was all in. And then my company is like, Ashley, we're going to shut down Diablo Canyon early. I was like, no, what? And just started kind of getting deliberate with my friend Kristen Zaitz, co-founder of Mothers for Nuclear. We just started asking ourselves, what can we do? Why is this happening? And we landed on, like, nuclear has a huge public perception issue, and our companies aren't talking about it. And when they do talk about it, it's kind of like corporate spokespeople, not a trusted messenger, not, women and community members. that necessarily, understand the technology, but can also listen to concerns and not just say, we're so safe because we have all these barriers and here's how radiation will kill you or it won't. And here, like the millirem level. And, not everyone responds to that kind of messaging. And so we felt like it was really important to start a group that would talk about it differently and try and build support for nuclear at the very bottom level, like public support, because that leads to like policies that support nuclear and politicians that support nuclear. And ultimately, like the decision to shut down Diablo Canyon was kind of driven by the state of California and, our politicians not recognizing the value of nuclear and not feeling, even if they did, that they had, political cover to make a different decision because there's so much anti-nuclear mentality. So we kind of just went in at the base level, like we're going to change the conversation. And I think we've been pretty successful. It's a huge shift right now. It's so exciting.
Yeah. How long did it take to get the community behind it? And what are some things that y'all did?
Yeah. So partly it was also just reality, right? Like, we were headed down a path to decommission Diablo Canyon for a lot of years as we kind of first started Mothers for Nuclear, and we're like, it's kind of hopeless in California right now. We're just going to do other things for a while. And then around 2019, it became even more, like, it was always obvious to us, like, yes, we need Diablo Canyon. Yes, we need more clean power. But 2019 was like, we need more power, period. We're going to have blackouts. And that's when we're like, okay, we got to start pushing this conversation a lot harder, with the governor. He's not going to want to be responsible for blackout. Gray Davis was ousted over that. So like now's our chance to really push this reliability conversation. And I think it still makes us a little bit sad that it's not more of a, like California claims to care about emissions and climate change, and nuclear is absolutely the best way to go for those reasons. But that's not the reason that they saved Diablo Canyon. It's still just kind of about how do we power our grid.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, I think the nuclear renaissance is primarily due to AI, and that's not like the right reason to do it. But like in the end, if we have less CO2 producing electricity, like I don't care, So that's yeah. But back to you, Rob.
Yeah. So Heather's point about like, well, there's a lot of fear, especially around Fukushima. And I can imagine Diablo is on the coast on the Pacific Ocean. Fukushima was on the coast on the Pacific Ocean. I'm sure y'all had a bunch of conversations about that.
I got called into work early that day because there was going to be a tsunami warning in Abuja Beach, and we wouldn't be able to drive through there because they were going to evacuate the community. So I had to go in at 3 a.m. and then kind of stand at attention, left watching, like, is there going to be a huge wave here,
Oh, how tense was that? And people are like probably calculating like how long does it take for a wave to travel across the Pacific?
Yeah, we had some like kind of general time frames for when we expected it, and we ended up not really seeing anything, more than a few inches of kind of that normal, slightly higher waves. Yeah,
So it's freeze down on Pismo Beach, taking advantage of that. But
yeah,
a theme that we come back to a few times on this podcast is that the younger generation, so Gen X and younger, call millennials and Gen Z, are actually pretty open to nuclear. They haven't seen all the tragedies that maybe boomers have, and I'm using broad, strokes here. But it's nice to have folks like you, Heather, who are saying like, well, we have an opportunity here. Let's really shape the messaging, because there's like willing ears on the other side who actually want to listen to it.
yeah. Young people maybe are a little better at like taking the information from an event like Fukushima, and like the media was all about the nuclear plant, but 28,000 people died in the earthquake and tsunami.
Yeah.
No one died from anything that happened at the nuclear plant. So I think young people are like, well, what's the big deal then? Whereas older people, the generation, that was kind of traumatized by nuclear weapons and war and stuff, they're just more hesitant and skeptical, and maybe think that, like we're not being honest about some of those communications. They're just a lot more skeptical.
So, Heather, what would your guidance be for people in other communities that are looking to advocate for clean energy, for nuclear? You've created this amazing network through your nonprofit, but like, how can others either get involved with you or maybe start something at the grassroots level in their community?
Yeah, well, we work with a lot of other partner organizations who talk about nuclear in their own voices. And I think that's something that's really important. And I'd like to say we're kind of the mothers of the pro-nuclear movement. And we like to encourage all our children to use their own things that they care about to talk about why nuclear is important. Every voice is important, no matter if they care about, climate change, or if they care about energy security, or if they care about advancing American technology. Nuclear is the right answer for all the reasons. And so I'd say, like, find what they care about and find how nuclear supports that. And then look for other groups that, might have those similar values. And if there isn't one, then start your own.
No. Yeah. And where can people find more information? Like if they want to connect with you or connect with Mothers for Nuclear, where could they find?
We have a pretty all right website. It's called mothersfornuclear.org, where we tell stories of people, lots of mothers and women, but also we call it mothers, brothers, and others. Like I said, everyone supports nuclear for different reasons. So we like to share stories of the people and why nuclear supports their values. And one of our pro-nuclear organizations that we partner with a lot is Generation Atomic. They actually have a map on their website of all the pro-nuclear groups. I think maybe not just in the country, maybe in the world. So if you're in a specific geographic area, you can go and take a look at that map and see who is nearby. And I mean, also that matters less now that we have so much social media and reach virtually. You can join a group anywhere around the world and help them advocate for new nuclear in Portugal or the Philippines, or like all these countries are trying to build nuclear programs and figure out how to engage with our communities about it. And there's plenty of opportunities for anyone to get involved.
I've got two follow-ups on that. So we've got teenagers, you've got teenager, and our listeners have teenagers, maybe younger kids too. Like, how do you talk to kids about nuclear? Because it's kind of a complicated technology, and how do you get someone excited about electricity like a kid?
Yeah. Well, that's a hard question, and my daughter's obviously maybe in a unique situation compared to a lot of teenagers, because sometimes when I get upset about something, I'm having a bad day, she'll come to me and be like, "Hey, Mom, did you want to talk about Fukushima? Do you want to tell me everything about what happened over there?" And like,
He knows you well.
Aw,
Wow.
that's a very unique situation.
Yeah. Wow.
yeah. So she's just very kind, and she knows what I love talking about. But yeah, overall, there's so many great summer camps, nuclear boot camps. There's some organizations ran Puerto Rico recently for kids to do projects, designing nuclear, siting nuclear. They're just, so you don't have to be a nuclear engineer or a scientist to work in nuclear energy. We need help with policy. But there's so many different ways for kids to get involved. And so I think for them, it helps to see people that work in nuclear and to hear about what different kinds of opportunities there are. I met a student in San Diego. We were doing a workshop down there recently, and his dad wrote to me and said, like, my son's really interested in nuclear. And I'm like, okay, well, can you narrow it down a little bit? Because here's like, I gave him like our whole board, like Heather does this, Kristen does this, Nina does this, Jennifer does this, nuclear physicist at Cal Poly. And he's like, actually, I'm interested in thorium and fusion. I'm like, okay, well, let's find those people then. And so, yeah, it's great to, reach out to people in these pro-nuclear nonprofits that can connect kids with wherever their interests lie, because there's so many people that are excited to talk about nuclear, like no matter what, if they're upset, if it's a weekend, if it's, like over wine, like hiking.
That is really true. Yes.
Yeah.
I think they're pretty much all, because it's not, there's just not a lot of awareness outside of our world of nuclear. So I always, when I'm at parties and people find out I'm a nuclear, they like, it's very fun. I feel very special. And Mike will contact you offline about these nuclear boot camps because he wants to be a counselor there. My other question was, you mentioned Portugal. So, we're kind of watching some of the developments in Europe. Overall, they're warming back up to it. I saw something on X where I think you got invited to something over in Italy. Is that right? Some kind of like pro-nuclear group. They're having a series of events. Am I wrong about that? Tell us about that.
So another group we work with a lot is Stand Up for Nuclear, and it's a global organization run by Paris Ortiz-Wines. She lives here in the Bay Area in California, and she helps people all around the world who want to advocate for nuclear. She will bring in support to help them throw an event like a demonstration or some kind of community engagement event. And so we had one in Portugal last year with a really great group of students that formed a group called Nuclear Vision Portugal. And so we had this, like booth and tabling thing in downtown Lisbon, and it was really great. And yeah, she's having one in Italy in October around the 15th-ish. And so there's Stand Up for Nuclear events that happen around the world. And it's really great to partner up with them and to show up to some of those events and support the people in those local areas, that need nuclear for different reasons, and to learn about what those reasons are. And
What I'm hearing from you is that not only nuclear powers us with our electricity, but it also is powering community.
Yeah, and it can do so many things in addition to like nuclear electricity too. Like lots of other countries use it for process heat, for building heat, for communities. There's talk about using, the higher temperature processes from nuclear to make concrete or steel, instead of, burning fossil fuels to do that. So there's just, so many opportunities for how we can use nuclear technologically and to build community around ideas of, a healthier and more prosperous future.
Heather Hoff, this has been a fabulous conversation, co-founder of mothersfornuclear.org. If anybody's interested to find out more, also with Diablo Canyon Nuclear Power Plant. Heather, thank you so much for your time today. I think we all learned so much, and there will be lots of information in the show notes for our listeners. Make sure you check those out too. Heather Hoff with the great shirt. Thank you so much for your time today, and thanks for all of our listeners. Make sure you subscribe and like our episodes. We are Nukes of Hazard. Till next time, see y'all later.
Yeah.
Bye.